Greetings, residents. Welcome back to our Front Porch Chats. Today I have the great honor here of having our county executive, Mark Molinaro, to talk with us, to share some insights. And so thank you for joining us, Mark.
I'm happy to be on anyone's porch at the moment. I don't get out of the office as much as I used to.
nor do I, right? We don't get out. You know, in fact, it seems like, Mark, that Carnwath and Wappinger tends to be your home away from home, and we really appreciate the support that you've given us. And just ask you, what do you find are a strong point or two of our community?
Wappinger, I've said this before. You're still one of these very large communities that acts like a very close-knit community, and it's unusual, I think, in this day and age. Although after what we've been through, I think people are finding you can be close without necessarily being physically close. But so your ability as a community to hold on to that small town kind of feeling, I think you have a wonderful base of volunteers that do a tremendous amount of work, and your leaders aren't all that bad either.
Thank you. Well, we get a great example from our county executive.
No, but very collaborative. I know you work closely with the village, and there's so many moving parts in a town of this size. You still are able to manage it and sort of keep that close proximity with one another. That's very special.
It has been, and I think that the people here have been remarkable throughout the several crises that we've been encountering, and we really appreciate that. We've tried to work with them from afar, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But today, during our chat, I wanted to touch upon a couple points. Certainly, first and foremost, in one respect, which is our health, is COVID-19 response, and then ways in which the county and our community and communities can work together going forward as part of the reopening, but also to make us stronger. And also, how do we build a better future together? And that's not just COVID-19 and reopening, but it's a number of other issues we can talk about. And finally, Carnwath Farms, which means a lot to us. You've been out here, and
you should know that there has never been a conversation between the supervisor and I that has not ended with, "Could you send money to Carnwath Farms?"
He read the script already, so or the rough outline of it. But but I think that first we'd say what a difference 3 months has made. We've not seen each other physically since then, although waved as you've gone by, and you've participated in a number of our virtual events, such as the Memorial Day service, which we really appreciated. And I think that we've seen, to me, the growth, I hope, of the community spirit. But the good news is, and I'll let you chat in just a second, that we've seen, as a result of the heroic efforts of everyone, a significant result here in stopping the spread, lowering infections, reducing our fatalities, and that the key 7 indicia and other points that you look at as our county executive, have continued to improve. All right, and I think that as we look forward, we're also, though, seeing it's not yet over. There's 19 states at least that are seeing rises. There's still 1,000 deaths a day, I believe, that we're seeing. So that's terrible thing. But in looking forward, what must we do to continue the progress we've made, so as not to have any other dramatic impacts on our lives, and especially on our businesses, and and particularly as we look at not just this month and next month, but 6-9 months ahead until there's at least a vaccine.
Yeah, and that really is the case. There won't be a vaccine or therapy, certainly before, we don't believe before the end of the year, although there could be some treatments that may work ahead of time. So to your point, Dick, first, I think we need to remind people that we did have over, and do have over 4,000 active, confirmed positive cases in the county. Thankfully, we're down to about 500 active cases.
And I think we have 5 in Wappinger now.
You're actually
so we're
quite
really
low as
very
for size.
Low.
And so a lot of that has been the I mean, again, we don't have a recovery definition. We just know that after a period of time, you qualify as recovered. But that's been basically because we've engaged, I think, universally in the physical distancing. We've recognized the need to wear a face covering when physical distancing isn't appropriate, it isn't possible. And, we took steps early, and you were a part of this. We closed schools 2 weeks ahead of the state. We stopped the sort of social events 2 weeks ahead of the state, and we did that, basically to get ahead of things. So that said, moving forward, we're still in a position where we're encouraging the physical distancing. If you're not from the same household, it's not necessarily the greatest time to get together. Although we say to people, if you know that your neighbors are safe and you've all kind of conducted yourselves in the same way, you haven't traveled near and far. There's nothing wrong with getting together as neighbors and enjoying that time.
Yeah.
Now we'll talk about it. You can participate in outdoor dining. There's nothing wrong with a small group getting together to do that, but physical distancing in social gatherings, so that's important. Continuing to wear face covering when you can is important. And then I say at the heart of it is being considerate. I think, we're overwhelmed by emotion. You go to social media, which this will be on, and people will have some statement. It's okay to be considerate to someone else's difference. If they believe that wearing a mask at all times is what they want to do, don't ridicule them or judge them.
Exactly.
And I would say if you're not wearing a mask, be considerate of the fact that there are others who will and will want you to, and then make choices. And so being considerate to one another, I think, is the heart of it.
I agree.
And we've seen progress because of it.
And I think now with respect to the mask, it seems like all the reports are consistent. The number one main effective barrier use against the disease is a mask. And everything else, of course, washing other hands and so forth. But the mask now, which has been a real major turn around. But as you know, I've known this from Asia for a long time, and we've talked about it. Actually, I think that in our discussions, and quite honestly, coming here, 5 years ago, and being involved in local government, county government, state level. I have really never seen a working together, closer working relationship than we've had.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And the county and communities. I think today we put into the Southern Dutchess News the fact Ozzy Albra, myself, and Nick D'Alessandro have been working closely together. So there's a full page, letter, going in there. And so the near daily communications that certainly I've had with you, and whether it's phone, text, group, but honestly, the county executive has been extremely available, to help us and the community and overall, and we really thank you for that.
Well, but I want to say that not only to that point, the towns, villages, and cities are coordinating quite well. We are working together without respect for party or differences, and there have not been, not every conversation has been we all agree on everything. No. But we find the consensus, and I think that's critical. But to your point, it's kind of funny that this question about wearing face masks or face coverings, Asian communities have been doing this for generations.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, whether, I don't know the data to necessarily see how it's affected them, but the truth of the matter is we know that, and our commissioner is an infectious disease doctor, Dr. Wythian, spent his life studying infectious disease. Again, physical distancing and a face covering works. And it certainly works when we know that there is no other treatment than to treat the disease. So we're going to continue to encourage it, but I at the heart of it want people to be considerate of one another.
No, I agree. Very much. When you look at what we've been doing and going through at county, local levels, working together, what do you think is perhaps the most important lesson? We can isolate one that's hope has been imprinted on our officials as a result of this going forward?
Well, I think the ability to cooperate. I think sometimes we forget that we can actually do that, and I think that the experience we've had these last 100 days now, it's been 100 days, it feels like a lifetime, is that we can work together. So number one, when the emergency is lifted and we get back to sort of the ordinary, I think continuing that level of cooperation, maybe not the number of phone calls, but the level I think is important. And the other is, I think, communication, and you're doing it now. I think that, especially in local government, we undervalue the need to be present with the people we represent so that they can ask the questions and we can answer them. So I think those two things I think are good lessons for elected officials. It's the collaborative nature of what we do is necessary and can happen, so we might as well continue it. And then the need to be, I think, very open and transparent in communicating with the public and giving them an opportunity to air their grievances. And I say this on social media, all the time. Somebody will say, "Oh, I'm sorry to complain to you," and well, that's the job.
That's exactly
so I don't mind.
right.
Get it out. We'll try to address it.
That's the way I approach it too, and being open and transparent. And we can't give the right answer all the time, if any. Sometimes we have to look into it, but I think that with respect to the town, just as I've mentioned this in other programs, your office, yourself, Ron Hicks, and others have been immediately responsive. Every time we've had a question, we've gotten the answer, or you've gone to Albany to get some clarification. But also you've helped us keep open a number of things.
Sure.
We kept our parks open.
Yeah.
We got review to keep our boat ramp open during striper season, for example.
Well, as a former fisherman myself.
Yeah, well, but it's important. I watch all sorts of people out there earning, I think their protein, trying to get some food sustenance when they couldn't get it necessarily at the stores. That's been important. But now we're in our recovery phase and reopening and hopefully rebuilding for a better tomorrow. And as we saw, thanks again to your efforts, we got the phase 2 reopening this past Tuesday.
Sure.
We've spent a lot of time on the restaurant reopening. I think, you've probably been working on it all from the beginning. We were talking for about 3 or 4 weeks, right? And looking at, proposals. And of course, there are some rules that we need to continue to follow with respect to those reopenings. But in going forward, as we look at, our town board has been very proactive. And in fact, we discussed this issue based on your executive order on Monday. We passed, actually we did 2 things. One is we approved what to do on the waiver and permits based on your executive order, but also we started the process where we may have in long term, a code change that would give us some, capabilities in pandemics and other situations. And then of course, again, when we discuss it, because what we've tried to do, I think, folks, is even though we have a diverse county that's spread, north and south, different environment, but we've tried to be consistent with each other, right? And so that's helped, very much. But, maybe you could just describe a few of the efforts, the challenges, some of the fun that you've had in this whole process, because they don't really get a chance to see what goes on and beyond, and your interactions with the governor's office,
and I think the fact that we can't do these things publicly is obviously not helped to explain some of it. So, I mean, this. Going into the emergency, centralized, we all sort of focused on centralizing decision making, and I think the municipalities recognized the county with its public health department needed to be in the middle of some of that decision making, and certainly even we recognized the state needed to take that same approach on certain decisions. But to your point, we've transitioned from the the immediate response to the pandemic to now the recovery. And we've argued, all of us, that some of that decision making needs to be decentralized and it needs to be localized. Again, based on the health concern, but able to be unique to each region or each county. So, your point, we knew that getting restaurants up and running again was going to be critical. Restaurants, by the way, as I think you know, is a major component of our local economy. There isn't a main street in America, but certainly not in Dutchess, that doesn't have several restaurants. And so I
think we've had 30 to 40 permits already taken out for our restaurants.
For the outdoor,
and that doesn't include the village. The village has been doing for the outdoor.
So originally the governor had said outdoor dining would have to wait till phase 3, which here would be not till June 23rd. County leaders across the region made the case and offered a suggestion. And we identified the protocols, not necessarily the face coverings and what have you, but what are the steps that we could take? What's the relief we need from the state liquor authority? And the state adopted it. The governor accepted it after about a week of going back and forth. Advanced outdoor dining now to the phase 2 that we're in. And as you know, we issued an emergency order. I issued an emergency order that's based on your requests. 20 towns, 8 villages, 2 cities, identified some of the guidelines you wanted waived. We included that in the order. And so there's uniformity. But to your point, in Wappinger, it may have been a relief from some of the permitting requirements, but in Stanford, it may have been allowing a tent in a parking lot.
Well,
so there's all it's all variations.
And I think down here, Fishkill, East Fishkill, us did have already tent permits. But when I looked at your list, it was amazing how in some communities they really have complicated zoning and planning board and so forth overlay. We had really only one code section that gives us then the flexibility. Well, shifting a little bit, we're in the process of reopening our governments. Actually, we've never stopped working.
I think
we've worked probably
harder. To tell people.
Harder than ever, actually. Much harder than ever. I think, but. In the process, of course, our town board passed on Monday night protocol guidelines, which I had shared with you before, and you shared it yours. But what's the county doing? And I think there's a couple of important things. You announced, actually, our town clerk, our county clerk announced that DMV is reopening. But why don't you talk a little bit about the services and government, reopening?
Yeah, first, what you and Nick D'Alessandro and Ozzy Albert worked on is protocols you should know helped inform us too. So we adopted, the county did a reconstitution plan that did take into consideration some of the work that you guys invested in, so that we were sharing in that. So effectively June 15th, county government offices will begin reopening by appointment only, and that begins with the Department of Motor Vehicles, which is a state-run office, but it's administered by County Clerk Brad Kendall. So we have to live by the state rules. But June 15th, by appointment only, is the Poughkeepsie office. 1 week later, the Wappinger office will open. Again, presumably at that point, still by appointment. We'll have that contact information for you. But all county government offices have been functioning. We just have not been open to public access. That will begin again on June 15th. Incrementally over the course of the next 4 weeks, we'll start to sort of reconstitute entirely. We're doing this, and I know you recognize it, but the county's doing it with a significant loss of revenue. The towns, villages, and cities will have some hurt. But we're right now looking at as much as an $80 million loss. It's an operating deficit. It's not a gap that we're projecting. It's what we're looking at today. So we're going to continue to be as effective as we can in delivering those services. But that said, our parks, we never closed. We thought never.
We were consistent together on that.
I gave you the heads up on Sunday that playgrounds could start reopening.
And
guess what the governor said yesterday?
And our board approved it on Monday.
I think it's great. I think it's great. So playgrounds are opening. Summer camps can function. Day camps can function. Pools can reopen now, and our health department will work with folks to monitor those. And I do want to say, while I'm here in Wappinger, while it's not going to be in Wappinger, the county is organizing a simultaneous Independence Day celebration. So 3 fireworks displays going on.
Outstanding.
One will be at Dutchess Stadium. That's the most logical for us. One in Northern Dutchess, one in Eastern Dutchess on the 4th of July. Car-based. You'll be able to sit in your vehicle and watch these.
Well, one year we'd like you to do it out there on a barge in the Hudson, so we can view it from Carnwath and other
let's
parts.
See if we can do that before the both of us are done.
But back, I think to first I want to mention that when the county executive says that summer camps are reopening, and we spent a lot of time. But I also emphasized to all of us, so I think East Fishkill, some others decided not to reopen because we couldn't figure out how to maintain health, safety of our young people, our staff, and so forth. So we came to that painful decision not to do it, but we have a virtual program we're trying to put in place and other things, to do that. But as we, look at our further reopening, what do you anticipate, we've discussed this, but maybe for the public, that there'll be some more acceleration of how we reopen?
I do think that. In fact, I told you today, whenever you watch this is today, Friday something.
Mike will get it out maybe by the end of today.
So today we're actually being called to a meeting with the governor's staff, or governor's office, which we expect will probably result in some advancement of certain activities. So phase 3, just as a reminder, is June 23rd in this region. We don't see any reason that wouldn't happen. That will include a lot of the personal care businesses that people worry about, including tattoo parlors. So I do know that County Legislator Joey Cavassini would like to get a tattoo on his back.
Well, and I've been writing you all the time about tattoos, right? Because I view it as healthcare industry. But anyway,
well, we actually we think
we're the same way.
We feel like it should have been open already. But phase 3 will be them as well. Restaurants will be able to open to 50% internal capacity. Now, phase 4, which is a big concern of interest, certainly is not slated to occur until July 7th. So you know this. We've been the entire state county leaders have been saying we have to get to phase 4 ahead of July 4th.
That's right.
Because those are if you can safely have a social gathering on July 7th, it would seem likely you could have it on the 4th. And for a lot of our businesses, in particular, Splashdown in this end of the county, if they can't get their doors open that week,
that's their big money making.
It really is. So we want them open. We're declaring our independence on July 4th. Hopefully the state will. Hopefully the state will relinquish
we have the full support of almost all, if not all of us. As far as mayors, village mayors, supervisors, so forth, and city mayors as well. So.
Well, we want that advancement ahead of the 4th of July. And I just would mention, one of the big indicators of our tourism economy is our sales tax receipts. And just as a reference, we received another payment yesterday. Now we get these quarterly you pay your sales tax to the state, they relinquish it back to us. Our payment yesterday was 50% less this year than it was last year.
Well, on that point, and I want the residents to know this, that I'm talking with a man of great integrity because he's mentioned the hits that the county is taking from a financial point of view, and it's very significant, drastic in many ways. But you've made it clear throughout that you're honoring the commitments to the towns, the communities, the cities, the villages on a number of things, whether it's sales tax, right? There is an agreement with the county that requires a minimum payment, under certain conditions, right? The collection of default taxes and so forth. You're still honoring those commitments and a bunch of other, right? So I want to say that the county has been looking after the communities at a sacrifice, actually, for county services.
I appreciate you saying that.
No, it is. I mean, tremendously.
We don't want to destabilize the local government scenario. So for us, yes, the sales tax agreement gets honored. To your point, and I don't know that folks understand this entirely, but if you choose not to pay your property taxes, and I suggest that you choose, if you can financially afford to, but if you don't pay your property taxes to the town of Wappinger, Dutchess County makes up the difference. We cut a check to Wappinger, and then we go through our process of recovering those dollars over the course of 3 to 4 years. So we're honoring both of those expectations. We're also, though, to taxpayers, we've extended the auction period, so in fact indefinitely. So we're not trying to take action to harm people during the economic difficulties they have. But that means the county is going to assume millions of dollars in cost and not necessarily recover it anytime soon. So from our perspective, again, we don't want to destabilize local government. We want to honor the minimum obligations we have, and then we'll weather the storm as best we can.
Shifting a little bit, looking at how we continue to work together. I think Mark and I both talk a number of times about
a day.
Well, yes, a day trade tax. But more specifically, we're students of history. And we've been admirers of Theodore Roosevelt for his environmental, strong support of environmental, international perspective, and even progressive reformer. But as we both know, he is also an advocate for white nationalism. White supremacy along those lines. A little bit different from what we've seen, but still was an advocate
in
of that.
Day.
In light of the sea change, and I think long overdue, that's coming out of the very unfortunate, I consider murder of George Floyd, right? And the different events that have been continuing to transform, I think, are even thinking for a lot of people. The question is, for both Dutchess and Wappinger, how do we together address these conflicting characteristics like TR himself had, right? What do we do going forward? How do we build on making some lasting change? And the county's been good. Town of Wappinger is, as you know, we've never had a police force. We haven't had those problems. We haven't had the huge millions of dollars that East Fishkill or what have. We relied on the sheriff's department. And has done a very effective job. So has state police, but there's been excellent training with the sheriff's department.
There has been, and I think it's important to say that under Sheriff Anderson's leadership, Dutchess County Sheriff's Office is federally accredited, and what that means, by the way, is that they have adopted many of the reforms that others are seeking to adopt. So they bar all chokeholds. I mean, there is not that has been standard in the operation of the Sheriff's Office.
And we've never seen one complaint that I'm aware of. I mean, there may have been a complaint or two, but
internally,
generally nothing's
and so, but the Sheriff's Office embraces a continuum of force policy. So they understand and recognize that not every situation requires the same response. They also require bystander officers to intervene in the case of any use of force. They train monthly on that continuum of force, which is important. And by the way, we train a lot of the local police departments as well. But I think the most progressive of the advancements that Sheriff Anderson has embraced is the crisis intervention, de-escalation, cultural competency, and mental health first aid training. And that is required for all of our officers when they go through academy, and then it's in their in-service training. So regularly they're doing continuum of force, cultural competency, crisis intervention, mental health first aid, which I think is critical. And to the point of TR, if we're not learning, we're dying.
Yeah.
And I think even TR would have said to
Yes,
himself, there's a moment for soul searching.
I agree fully.
And he also was a political opportunist to a degree. So he would have made the reaction.
Right.
But I do think, to your point overall, what I've tried to adopt, and I think it's important, is ending the yeah but mentality, which is yeah that was bad, but this is yeah you may feel wronged, but listen, it's yes and yes you are wrong and we need to react. Yes that was wrong and we need to learn. So I just think that at this moment in time, it would be really helpful if people engaged in some soul searching.
Right.
You know this, and I know your background as well, but my wife grew up in Richmond, Virginia, inner city.
Yeah.
My nieces and nephews are individuals of color, young boys and girls, African American. They have a different experience than I do.
Right.
And if I don't take time to understand that experience, if we don't as a society recognize that is a different life experience, then we're missing not only our obligation to adhere to the promise this country makes to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for everyone regardless of who they are, but also we're missing the opportunity to be better. And I do think that really is where we need to begin. Soul search, listen, and say yes, and we can do better.
Speaking of that, and this, I'm going to shift into Carnwath.
Of course you are.
But one of the things that we'd like to explore with the county, and since we have this great tract of land that has all sorts of potential uses, is perhaps we have some sort of living memorial or something, the county community that reflects on these issues.
I think it's important.
And we put that here. Yeah. And then, also people coming out. We have a garden that we're, getting in place that we also call a victory garden, but we can rename it. But something that, stands for, this, was sites of original, also indigenous Indian encampments.
Sure.
But as we look at the variety of ways, I think that one of the aspects that we want to look at is that. But further, I'd like you to just talk briefly, and this is related to Carnwath because Joey and I are town board looking at, creating a recreation center over in what we call the Reese Cultural Center.
Sure.
Great space in our town hall. We don't have it. So, but what you mentioned mental health. Yeah. Could you just briefly tell our residents the great program, facilities, and so forth that you have that are addressing these, which are really real issues right now?
Yeah, and this county has probably the most comprehensive network of mental health services of any county in the country. So whether it's the training we talked about, and that happens not just for law enforcement, but for responders. We do a lot of, it's called ACE training with educators. So we're training teachers and individuals who interact with young people to identify moments of trauma, to intervene, so that we don't have the kind of violence that often flares up and has flared up in school shootings and that sort of thing, those sort of incidents. But our mental health first aid, sort of infrastructure is significant. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call our helpline or text our helpline. And I've said to people, it may be that you feel like you're in a moment of crisis, or you know someone who is, or it could just have been you had a long day and the kids are finally asleep and you're really having sort of a difficult time. You can call or text 845-485-9700, our mental health first aid line, helpline, or of course our crisis interventions center, our stabilization center, where 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you'll be able to walk in again. For now, it's telephonic and virtual. We have mental health professionals available for drug addiction programming and for mental health support, and then dozens of other programs that are available. And we're going to continue to expand. When we get back on our feet financially, the goal is to transform that mental health campus into a more active facility. We're also hopefully going to purchase a vehicle that will allow us to have really bring those services out onto the road. And maybe we station ourselves here for an afternoon and provide some education.
Oh, that would be great, I think. And we'd really appreciate it.
Is this Carnwath?
This is all Carnwath. And the Hudson River is right over there. Just a few weeks ago, you could see through.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that you...
He knows. He's just pulling my leg. But to another of the many important topics are seniors. As I mentioned, you've been there, you've spoken to them too. Our very small room, that's our senior center. We have altogether about 7,000 square feet on the first floor over there, kitchen and recreation space, meetings, huge meeting space. And so we're looking at how to, transform that. But, in the context, I just want to use the opportunity for you to advise our seniors what you're doing with respect to the spring, with respect to the picnic that we usually
Sure.
have in our town and other towns,
Yeah.
and then I'll come back to the rec
To
center.
Carnwath? We'll come back to
Yeah,
Carnwath?
we'll come back to the one last time. One last comment.
Two things you should know. If you're a senior at home and you're not easily able to access a meal or groceries or get to the restaurant, if you contact us at 486-2555, 486-2555, we're still doing our home delivered meal program. So if you're not signed up to participate and you want to, call. We'll send Joey Cavassini to deliver your meal.
Yes, in his shorts.
In his shorts, no less. I know. There's a few seniors at the picnics I know that like to pinch
Yeah.
at him. So,
But one, Ginger wants you to.
Ginger can sing to me anytime. That said, we're expanding our meal delivery, so please do sign up if
Right.
you have a particular concern. We have volunteers who provide meals 5 days a week, so it may be a few frozen meals for the weekend, but you'll still get deliveries throughout the week.
Yeah.
Our senior picnics
Yes.
this year, because of the vulnerability of the population and the disease, we don't feel we can convene
Right.
traditional
Exactly.
picnics. So we're going to have 12 drive-up picnics throughout the county. So figure it's curbside pickup. You'll get an invitation. You can register. There'll be one locally, and then you'll drive up. We may even have Bob Martinson singing as you drive through.
Yeah.
That'll be good, and
Great.
You'll get a meal. Now you know this. We're asking the towns, villages, and cities to help us identify delis in your
Yes.
community. So if you're a deli owner and you want to bid on providing a lunch,
Right.
we have a document. You just need, very simple. We just need
Yeah.
to know the pricing.
We'll be releasing. I think Rachel sent it
I think she did
yesterday or something. So we'll be getting that
So we're
out.
going to buy local.
Yep.
The milk we're buying from Hudson Valley Fresh,
Good.
Dutchess County-based business, and all of our fruit will be local farms. And you'll drive up. You'll get your reservation. You'll drive up. We'll hand you a
Right.
meal. We'll say
Right.
some nice things, and
Right.
and then you can at least enjoy
Yeah.
this year. So.
So, with respect to our senior center, I think that, and I'm not going to push you for funding at this point.
Well, I
in
did
time,
leave the
but-
checkbook at home.
Yeah, right. But what we all together, I think, to reopen the building and to do that, we're looking for about $150,000.
Yeah.
But one of the things that since and you have a great senior center further up
Yeah.
north, what we'd like to do, Joey and I, and maybe we could be thinking about a brainstorming is use that really great facility down there,
Yeah.
not just for the Wappinger, but maybe for a southern
Sure.
Dutchess,
Well, I will say this. I
regional
know
aspect.
that
Because we also had the chapel building, which has
Yeah.
now been renovated, just needs now a fresh coat of paint and a little bit other loving touch, but we put a new roof, I'll fix the roof and other things.
Well, there are a couple grant programs that hopefully we'll be able to maintain in 2021. Right? This is 2020. I can't
Yeah.
keep track.
Yeah, it's hard to
I'm not
tell.
going to say what year it is, let alone what
Right.
date it is. That actually, if a couple municipalities came together, you could do
Right.
it as a shared effort.
Yeah.
But taking down barriers to ADA compliance, so
Right.
ramps, elevators,
Right.
things of that
Yeah,
nature,
we
we
have
have dollars
that
for.
need. Yep.
No income eligibility for those, by the way, for that.
Because we do have that need, Joey.
Yeah, and so I think that there's some opportunities, and the federal government, listen, to their credit, I will say this: Congress, even though it starts in different places and it diddles a bit, it has these last few months
Right.
come together on some very
That's right.
critical funding streams,
Yeah.
and there will be new dollars.
And
that
I've
maybe
talked
we-
with Congressman Mahoney
Yeah, oh,
about
yeah.
that, and he's a great supporter, I think, of us.
Yes.
Here, and he's looking for and wants to try to earmark something. Of course, as people read a lot about the HEROES Act, they
Sure.
really don't know, but could be a massive funding effort
Yeah.
that would affect every one of our communities and some tremendous amount of money, including what he's been able to put in for Wappinger.
Yeah,
so.
I think he acknowledges that the HEROES Act won't be adopted by the Senate exactly. It's been adopted by the
exactly. Yeah.
House. But I figure if the Senate is the starting, if the Senate number is the starting point for the Senate majority, and the
Yeah.
House number is this, they're going to end up negotiating
I think so.
somewhere in between,
Yeah.
which will be good for all of us.
All of us.
Yeah.
That's right. So, well, anyway, I wanted to just thank you again.
I appreciate it.
For all your support. First and foremost, leadership, but also coming out here today and sharing some of the time with our residents. And I want to make sure that anytime they know that they can always contact your office, contact my office. And we'll communicate right away, on those things. So I hope that not just you and by the way, your family, how are they doing?
Yeah.
You have a lovely family.
I
so.
do. My wife is an amazing individual who has kept 4 children somewhat organized these last 100 days, and everyone's doing well. My son Jack is moving up today. He's his last day of 5th grade, and we go off to middle school next year.
Oh, new world for you guys.
Yes, yes. My daughter's in high school, and the 2 youngest will end up. They have a little more time before they have to get into kindergarten. But everyone's doing well. I will say this: you were all very kind.
Yes.
You recognize my father succumbed to this disease, COVID, a couple weeks ago. We've yet to have an opportunity to kind of, synthesize that information.
Right.
But at some point we'll have a funeral service. But everybody, all the residents of Dutchess County are very kind to extend their.
Absolutely. We're very sad. My mother-in-law passed away during the same period, not from COVID directly, but I think she got depressed, and she was 94.
Yeah.
And so, but on Monday, the Buddhist monastery over Mount Carmel is reopening, and we're going to be able to inter her ashes, out there.
Nice.
For that. So that would be actually the first time that the families got together other than digitally.
Well, keep physically distant,
Yes,
would you?
we will. No, absolutely. And they have a major protocol, my wife's found out, on how to handle and how to receive the urn and all that sort of thing. So, but thanks again. Really appreciate it, and please, you and your family and everyone, stay safe, remain healthy, and we look forward to growing the collaboration that we've had.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. From a distance.